smashed the mile record as well, Tim, a few weeks ago.
She did. That 4:13 mile was just science fictional. It was incredible. A 4:13 mile for a lady indoors. Many people just left open-mouthed and speechless at the quality of that performance from Dibaba. Again, this promises to be a fascinating race, Chris, although I fear the Africans will dominate it and put the rest of the world in shade. I like to see. How do you defeat somebody like this who is so strong, so fast, so consistent? And indeed, to their credit, you have to say that the Ethiopians are consistent, aren't they, Chris? It's very, very rarely you get a bad performance from an Ethiopian in the middle or long distances. They had a disaster in the Olympic marathon in the men's race. None of them finished, but at middle distances, they rule supreme.
Well, we've already had one gold medal in the 3000 from Kajelcha from Ethiopia. Can Dibaba or Dafar make it an Ethiopian double? 15 laps of the track then. Let's just keep an eye on the pace. It's Saina from Kenya. It's not a household name, who moves to the front first of all, and you can see straight away Dibaba just out for a bit of a stroll at the back, keeping well out of trouble, and you can already see a very, very pedestrian pace.
Yeah, Rogri there in third place, having a chopper stride. She's almost jogging, and everybody gets impatient with this. And the big question mark in the minds of probably 2/3 of this field is, what do I do? Do I just keep jogging like this and avoiding heels and elbows and getting thumped around, or do I go to the front and stride out freely? Well, Steph Twell hits the front, and Kudzilic there beside her, probably thinking, well, at least now I don't have to worry too much about what's going on behind. You watch the amount of traffic and bumping and barging that goes on through this next couple of laps for those in the pack.
Well, Steph Twell out in the front there. Good to see British representation in this race. Josephine Moultrie, the lesser known of the two British athletes. She's just 2/3 of the way back. Who was second at the indoor championships a few weeks ago. Steph Twell in second place there. So experienced, Steph Twell, but so unlucky over the years with all sorts of injuries.
80 seconds, nearly 81 seconds at 400. That is jogging. Well, for ladies like this, it's jogging. It's probably about marathon pace for Paula Radcliffe. She could do roughly 104 laps at this speed. Back in the day, anyway.
Yeah,
Sorry.
back in the day, I was going to say. Maybe even still today. She's still in pretty good shape, isn't she, Paula? Meseret Defar then in the thick of that pack. Chep Kamoy as well. And Dibaba, you can see left of picture, just continuing to just stay out of trouble. It's almost sort of a strategy that Mo Farah adopts, isn't it? These early laps, just at the back, almost as if they like to add to the challenge by picking off the runners as they start to pick up the pace. And it's maybe picked up slightly, but it's still very, very slow indeed.
Well, it was almost 2 minutes at 3 laps. I mean, that's 80 seconds per lap. Outdoors, that would be 40 seconds per lap indoors. And at least now they're beginning to move a little bit more healthily, and many of them will be grateful for that. It's gradually whittling down to 2x2 format. Although running wide there towards the back is Chep Kamoy.
Interesting that Dibaba describes the 1500 as her favourite event. It's very special, she says. That's where her heart is, but she's just so devastating over the two distances, indeed the 5000 as well. And as you asked at the top of the programme, what on earth do you do? What can you do to damage somebody with such extraordinary talent and who never has an off day, almost never?
Well, she's right at the back of them alongside Jo Moultrie of Great Britain, who is personal best was just 8:58. New name for me, Moultrie. She's learning her trade here. Talk about being thrown in the deep end, the 25-year-old. And it'll be very interesting to see how she can cope with things here, Jo Moultrie. Just being here is the big achievement. The experience is worth its weight in gold for an up-and-coming middle distance runner.
Kudzilic then from Belarus in second place, with Steph Twell just taking on duties there. And there we can see Genzebe Dibaba just in the blink of an eye going from last to second place and just tucking in behind Steph Twell. And Dafar responding, just coming up onto the shoulder of Saina in fourth place.
And Dibaba hits the front. I think she's had enough. She's decided this is way too slow. 3:51 for the first kilometre. I mean, that for the first 1200, excuse me. That is just so slow, and now the race is on. And of course, I think Dibaba is thinking, this is just daft. We're jogging here for lap after lap. I might as well get out there and just run the legs off them, which I know I can do.
Well, Steph 12 bravely is trying to respond and go with her, but she'll just keep winding it up Dibaba. This is certainly nowhere near full throttle. She'll just keep winding it up and doing more and more damage. And in the space of, what, one lap, 200 meters, you can see the field has stretched out extraordinarily, and she will just keep stretching and stretching and stretching.
Interesting to watch Dibaba. She was glancing up the big screen to see if she could see what sort of damage she's doing behind her. She hardly needs to, really. Anyway, it's showing long jump, I think, at the moment. But that gap is widening and widening, and Defar is being held back to some degree by Steph 12 now. If Defar and Saina want to have even a sniff at staying with Dibaba through these middle stages, Chris, they've got to get round Steph 12. But the surge was so sudden for a couple of laps as Dibaba goes through there now with, what, 7 laps to run, that the field spread-eagled and powerless.
Well, if we accept that Dibaba is going to go away again, we could be already less than halfway through looking at the battle for the minor medals. We haven't really mentioned Shannon Roby yet. She's starting to make her way through the field.
Yeah, it's back in 6th place, Roby. I think she's probably thinking more about the silver medal than she is about anything else. You know, even Defar, I'm surprised, hasn't covered this surge. And I saw Defar come back with her first race in many months in Boston a few weeks ago, and she looked fantastic. I think she ran about 8:35 for 3,000. I'm really surprised she's allowed Dibaba to just go like this without any real significant challenge. And I mean, it's kind of ironic that it was Steph 12 who's been the one who tried to go with it.
Well, the gap has actually narrowed a little bit now, whether that's because Dibaba has just eased off a bit or the others have just regrouped. But Shannon Roby now into 5th place, just trying to get back into that group. And Dibaba, who I thought would just keep going away and away, has been reeled in there, and all credit to Steph 12 for taking on those duties. The question there for Steph 12 is, how much is she paid for that? And already we're seeing Defar moving up into 2nd place with the Kenyan Saina also still there, and Shannon Roby there just sensibly making her way slowly but surely into that leading group.
Let's just focus on Steph 12 for a moment. I mean, this is a brilliant run from Steph. She's really giving a good account of herself back there in 5th place alongside Shannon Roby, as you say, Chris. Dibaba controlling things, just holding that gap at about 15, 17 meters, goes through there. That time at 2 kilometers, 6:02. Well, I know she'll blast this next 3 or 4 laps and will obviously go a long way under 9 minutes, but I fear for the others. Look at the way she's striding out there now, Chris. Another acceleration. There's an element of fartlek to this. She seems to be surging and easing and surging and easing.
Yeah, rope-a-dope stuff, isn't it, as they say in the business. But Dibaba again, another surge. And Meseret Defar, she's looking up all the time to see how much damage she's doing, and the answer is quite a lot. Defar in 2nd place, and Steph 12 is starting to find this a little bit punishing and is slipping back. Shannon Roby now in 4th place with Defar opening up a little bit of a gap.
Good run from Costa there in the orange, back in, what, 5th place. Defar is indeed chasing hard, although surely she can't close that gap. I mean, it's, what, 25 metres now? Betsy Saina back in 3rd place. But I just can't see Dibaba being caught here now. She's got so much in reserve, surging through towards 2 laps to go. This would be the bell outdoors. And look at that gap. And to do this to Defar, who's been in supreme shape, Chris, in recent weeks, underlines the calibre of this run. It's hard to really gauge it because she's running on her own. She's in isolation, but she's just churning it out at something much quicker than the rest can manage.
Well, it's like a training run, isn't it? And Defar is on the chase. Roby now into 3rd place, but it's Ethiopia 1, Ethiopia 2, and Dibaba, there's no doubt about who is going to win this, and she's going to make it an Ethiopian double coming through to take the bell. And will she put on a show for the last lap? Yes, she will, I think. 200 to go. Forget the time, it's far too pedestrian. That's gone. She's run so much more quickly already this year. But it's the Genzebe Dibaba show, and what a treat for this Portland crowd. Shannon Roby still thinks she can reel in Meseret Defar. And now athletes being lapped, but Dibaba never in doubt. Dibaba into the home straight for the last time. Has a, what, 30, 40 metre advantage over her compatriot Meseret Defar. It's gold again for Genzebe Dibaba. She successfully retains her title. Meseret Defar in 2nd place. And a bronze medal, a worthy bronze for Shannon Roby, who gave it her all. But just as we predicted before the race started, It's the Ethiopia show. Genzebe Dibaba adds yet another global title. She reigns supreme, and Meseret Defar has to settle for silver and a worthy bronze for Shannon Robery.
Well, what can you do about an athlete this superior? I was reading this morning about Yolanda Balash, Romanian high jumper back in the day, back in the 50s, who was totally dominant. She was jumping something like 10 or 15 centimeters higher again and again than anybody else in the world. She was basically way ahead of her time. And I just get the feeling that's the case with Genzebe Dibaba here. The performances she's churning out, that 4:13 mile a few weeks back in Stockholm, the way she's running, that world record last summer outdoors, 3:50 in Monaco for 1,500 meters. Nobody else is able to get close to it. She's running the legs off the best of them. Hassan won the 1,500 meters yesterday. She was destroyed by this athlete in Monaco last summer. Brilliant run, quite supreme.